Hello, and welcome to Quick Maths. Today we'll be covering the second part of the fraction section, so let's get started. Let's look at the objectives for this lesson. Today we'll cover addition, ordering, and subtraction of fractions. Let's move on to adding fractions. The key to adding fractions is making sure that all of the fractions you're adding have the same denominator. When you have fractions with the same denominator, they're very easy to add. Let's take an example of 1/8 plus 2/8. You might think that you can add the numerators and add the denominators, but it doesn't quite work like that. Let's look at the example in more detail. So let's think of our pizza again, divided into 8 slices. So we have 1 slice out of 8, or 1/8. We add 2 slices out of 8, or 2/8. This gives us 3 slices out of 8, or 3/8. So here's our method for adding fractions quickly with fractions have the same denominator. We add the numerators to get the numerator of our answer. Here that's 2 plus 3, which gives us 5. We then write this over the same denominator as the fractions being added. This is 11. If you find that you have a top-heavy fraction for your answer, you can convert this to a mixed number. You may also need to simplify your answer if you see that the fraction is not in its simplest form. So what if you are adding fractions with different denominators? For example, a half plus 2/3. Remember, the key is to make sure that all fractions you add have the same denominator. You will also start to bring in knowledge from the earlier parts on equivalent fractions and mixed numbers. So step 1 is to find equivalent fractions for those that you're adding that have the same denominator. So let's start with a half. We can multiply the numerator and denominator by 2 to get 2/4. We can multiply the numerator and denominator by 3 to get 3/6. We could go on and multiply by 4, 5, etc., but we'll stop there for now. We then move on to 2/3. So we can multiply the numerator and denominator by 2, and this gives us 4/6. And we can stop there because we've found equivalent fractions for each one of those we're adding with the same denominator. In this case, this denominator is 6. And now we know how to add those fractions with the same denominator. So 1/2, we know this is 3/6, plus 2/3, we know this is 4/6. Now we add the numerators for the top of our new fraction, this gives us 7, and we write this over the same denominator as the fractions we are adding, which is 6. This is 7/6. So we now have a top-heavy fraction, which we can write as a mixed number, and this is 1 1/6. So let's do a slightly more complicated example of 3/8 plus 4/5. So these fractions don't have the same denominators, so we need to use our method to find equivalent fractions to these that do have the same denominators. So we want to get our denominators to the same number. Now, instead of trying multiplication by lots of different numbers until we get to the same one, as we did in the last example, there is an easier way to do this. Now, our denominators are 8 and 5. 8 times 5 is 40. So I know that I can definitely multiply both of my denominators by something to get to 40. So I can use this. I can get 3/8 to a fraction with a denominator of 40 by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by 5. 3 times 5 is 15, and 8 times 5 is 40. I can get 4/5 to a fraction with a denominator of 40 by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by 8. 4 times 8 is 32, and 5 times 8 is 40. When converting your fractions to equivalent ones, it's a good idea to work with the lowest possible denominator that you can. The way to do that is to work with the lowest common multiple of the denominators of the fractions that you're adding. This is the smallest number that your denominators will go into. Now 40 is the lowest common multiple of your denominators here, 8 and 5. so we're okay. Now that we've converted our fractions into equivalent ones with the same denominator, we can easily add them. So 3/8 is 15 over 40. 4/5 is 32 over 40. We found this in our last step. Now to add these, we just add the numerators for the top of our new fraction. 15 plus 32 is 47. And we keep the same denominator for the bottom of our new fraction. That's 40. Now here we have a top-heavy fraction, so we can change this to a mixed number. In mixed numbers, 47 over 40 is 1 and 7 over 40. You may see examples with mixed numbers, such as 2 1/3 plus 4 2/5. And remember, this is just 2 plus 1/3 plus 4 plus 2/5. So the first step here is to just add the whole numbers. 2 plus 4 equals 6. The next step is to add the fractions. Here our fractions don't have the same denominators, and therefore we need to change them to the same denominator. Now, using our previous method, we change the denominators to 15, because 3 times 5 is 15, and this is the lowest common multiple of 3 and 5. When we do this, we get 1/3, which is 5 over 15, plus 2/5, which is 6 over 15, and this comes to 11 over 15. Then we just add the whole number and the fraction together in a mixed number for our answer. This is 6 and 11 over 15. Here are some examples for you to try. You'll find the answers in the text below the video. Let's move on to subtracting fractions. This is very similar to adding fractions. It's easy to subtract fractions when the denominators are the same. So let's take an example of 7/10 minus 2/10. We do 7 minus 2 for the numerator of our answer. This gives us 5. And we keep the denominator the same. This is 10. So what if your fractions have different denominators? Well, the key, again, is to make sure that all of your fractions have the same denominator. Now, the example we're going to use here is 4/9 minus 1/4. We change both denominators to 36, because 36 is the lowest common multiple of 9 and 4. Let's start with 4/9. So to get from 4/9 to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 36, we must multiply the numerator and the denominator by 4. 4 times 4 is 16, and 9 times 4 is 36. Then we move on to our quarter. To get from 1/4 to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 36, we multiply the numerator and the denominator by 9. 1 times 9 is 9, and 4 times 9 is 36. So now we have the same denominator for our fractions, we can easily work with these. So 4/9 is 16 over 36, and we take away 1/4, which is 9 over 36. We do 16 minus 9 for the numerator of our answer, which is 7, and we put this over the same denominator, which is 36. Now you must remember to keep the order the same when you change your fractions to equivalent fractions. So here, your equivalent fraction for 4/9 goes first, and you take away the equivalent fraction for 1/4. If you write them the other way round, then you'll get the wrong answer. Here are some examples for you to try. You'll find the answers in the text below the video. So let's look at ordering fractions. Again, the key point is the same, to make sure that all your fractions have the same denominator, because once you have the same denominator, it's very easy to do. So here's our first example. 3/8, 5/8, and 1/8. Let's put them in order. So again, you can think about the pizza, you can draw pictures if needs be, but these can be ordered by just looking at the numerators and putting those in order. So from smallest to largest, you have 1/8, 3/8, and 5/8. Let's look at a second example of a half, 3/8, and 3/4. These don't all have the same denominator, so we need to convert all of our fractions to equivalent ones with the same denominator. We can use 8 here as our common denominator because 8 is the lowest common multiple of 2, 4, and 8. So looking at our fractions, there's no need to rewrite 3/8 because it already has 8 as a denominator. But we can rewrite the other fractions as equivalent fractions with a denominator of 8. So to get from 1/2 to an equivalent fraction with 8 as a denominator, we multiply the numerator and the denominator by 4. 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. To get from 3/4 to an equivalent fraction with 8 as a denominator, we multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 8. So our fraction list of a half, 3/8, and 3/4 is now 4/8, 3/8, and 6/8. So to put these in order, we just look at the numerators and put those in order. So from smallest to largest, that's 3/8, 4/8, and 6/8. Now remember to put each one of these fractions back to the original fraction you're given in the question. So 3/8 is the fraction you were given in the question, 4/8 is a half, and 6/8 is 3/4. Thank you for watching. Be sure to watch our next video where we'll cover multiplication and division of fractions. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe so we can bring you more videos.